Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Coffin, HRA, Hard Rock Analyst Advisories. I'm here with Mike Konnert, the CEO, and with Charles Funk, who's a VP Exploration for Vizsla Resources. Vizsla, as certainly subscribers already know, has an option on essentially a complete high-grade silver-gold camp in Mexico. They've been reporting drill results recently, and they put out a real barn burner this morning. Very, very impressive grades, the kind of ultra-high grades that originally attracted me to the project. I mean, this is sort of what I was hoping to see. I wasn't expecting a hole like today's every day, obviously, but the potential for that sort of grades, longtime subscribers will know how big a fan I am of Silvercrest, and aside from Eric Fear, who's a big part of the reason. Another reason is that's, he's also found projects that, one, had very high grades, but two, tended to have more equal distribution in terms of gold and silver grades, which I also like. These kind of ultra high grades, these are the sort of things that if you can find enough tonnage, you end up having extraordinarily high margins when you're in production. And that's the reason why you tend to get extraordinarily high margins when the market puts a valuation on these things once you start racking up resources. I know plenty of people that question the valuation of Silvercrest, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't high at $1.5 billion. But if you understand the kind of money that thing's going to make when it goes into production, I mean, that's the reason. That's what you look for in one of these. And based on today's results, it looks like Vizsla might have a shot at something similar. You want to take us through today's results, Mike? Give us a little brag.
Well, yeah, I'm not sick of bragging about this yet. Of course, the headline number was 2.8 kilograms of silver and over 100 grams gold, so 107 gold over 3.7 meters. And that was in a broader intercept of 6 meters of 1.8 kilograms gold and 66 grams, 1.8 kilograms silver and 66 grams gold. So, spectacularly high grade, very clearly high margin material there. And, something that actually exceeded our expectations for the project. We knew there was high grade there. We'd seen evidence of, high grade in old workings and sampling and even some historic drilling. But, this is really just a first for the district. And of course, this is not the only area that we've drilled high grade so far. This is a 60-meter step out on the original discovery hole to the north on Napoleon. But this is, reflective of the opportunity on the district that these vein corridors that have really never seen any meaningful drilling or even any meaningful exploration. So I think, although today was extraordinary, the results were absolutely extraordinary. The potential for more high grade exists across the district in these undrilled vein corridors. So, obviously a very exciting day, and I think there's a lot of excitement to come with more drilling on more undrilled veins across the entire district.
Okay, and I'm gonna get Charles to walk us through this.
So this is the same graphic as a base layer from our last press release when we announced the discovery. The first hole was 8 meters at 1544 silver equivalent, right, with some very elevated lead and zinc numbers. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that, I think, was that a week or 2 weeks ago, Eric? We talked through
a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
So since then, we've continued the drill program and submitted more samples for analysis. And this press release covers 2 of those holes that drilled underneath the discovery and a hole that's a step out to the north. So as a bit of a recap, we drilled hole 1 and hit the stope. We stepped underneath and made the discovery. Then we spun the rig and drilled to the north and hit another excellent intersection. And so once we had those 2 holes, we went deeper underneath, and that's holes 4 and 5 that are in this press release. So if you scrolled up to the table above, you can see hole 4. Hole 4 actually split into quite a number of veins. You can see there's 6 vein intervals, anywhere from 0.8 to 6.95 meters true width. And there's a range of decent grades in there. for 171 silver equivalent up to 522. And as we were seeing before, a main hanging wall vein that seems to be on the eastern side of the structure, and then a whole series of sub-parallel veins into the footwall. It's split into more veins than the intersection above. Then
you call that the hanging wall just because it's it's the hanging wall of a vein set? I mean, you've obviously got, or is there a change in lithology there? I mean,
no, the unit is hosted in diorite on both sides. Hanging wall just because, broadly speaking, it's steeply dipping to the east, maybe 80, 85 degrees.
Right.
So that's on the hanging wall side.
Okay.
It does curve and bend a little bit. That isn't super clear. But broadly speaking, I just mean the eastern side of the structure where we're seeing a coherent vein.
Okay.
Then hole 5, we stepped under hole 2, the discovery hole, and we hit 10.65 metres of 283 in a wide coherent vein that has an excellent subinterval of a metre at 1,200 grams. So we've still got a quality vein. The true widths in these intersections are anywhere from 50 to 70% of the downhole widths.
Right.
And so they were solid results to follow up on what we'd seen before. It's still open at depth. We've still got a really good vein to follow. But we stepped to the north after that. We sort of maximised the use of that drill pad. So we stepped to the north and, sorry, we'll flick back to figure 1. You can see the step out. And drilled the 60-metre step out to the north where the section is that we'll look at shortly. In fact, we might as well go to the section now as well, Eric, the next figure. And so we drilled a shallower angle hole and where we interpreted the vein would be from surface sampling, we hit a void that we assume is a mine working. So we continued that on hole and found a little footwall vein deep in the footwall, but then we stepped down and hole 7 is the highlight that yourself and Michael referenced.
Right.
I was talking in our last video call how it was nice that we had sulfides and grey quartz to discolour the vein to give us an idea that it was well mineralised.
Right.
In this one, the vein is almost black because it's almost entirely sulfide. It's sort of submassive sulfide. There's hardly any white quartz material at all. And so that's the 6-metre interval at 8 kilos silver equivalent, including some very spectacular subintervals. Then we drilled another vein a bit further down the 2 metres at 322 and continued on. So, 60-metre step out to hit a hole like that was a pretty amazing result.
It's very impressive. And you're showing the section, the next hole that you drilled, the steeper one. I thought that was pretty interesting the way that the sections are in. I mean, you clearly hit a fair amount of vein material, and you're showing the top. This is hole 8 that's below it, which is assays pending. They don't have any assays yet. So you're showing the footwall as, not surprisingly, the highest one that you hit, since it's a footwall, rather the hanging wall vein. But you're also showing several veins below it. So your overall vein system corridor there is starting to look pretty large in that hole.
Yeah, it has surprised us as we've gone deeper. It's not the old pyramid statement that promoters like to make, but excellent widths as we go. And that surprised us from what we'd sampled at surface about how good the widths are as we drilled. It's always a pleasant surprise. But yeah, when we steepen the hole up, you can sort of see if you connect the surface and the mine working and intercept A, we were expecting a sort of more a dip to the east, but it steepened up in this hole. So we ended up stepping down a bit over 30 metres in the vein where we hit it. So we hit the same vein. We're waiting for assays, but, we're broadly encouraged and looking forward to those assays. And then we expected to continue on, but we started hitting all these sub-parallel vein zones, some that looked like they could be well mineralised, others that looked like they could be more white quartz. But yeah, much more veining in that hole underneath than we saw in the hole above. And potentially that's representing a sigmoid loop where it goes solid, bifurcates into multiple and then connects again into a solid vein. It
That's
might stay.
because of fault movement, right? I mean,
What we
theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically, yes. Yeah, faults control the way that the veins form and then horsetail and then reform. But to be frank, we have a lot to learn about this system. We know we've got a coherent main vein, that's the hanging wall vein, and then in different intersections, we do or do not see multiple footwall veins in that structure. It's a good, so we're waiting for assays for that hole, and we didn't get more vein material. Some of it more barren quartz, some of it quite prospective looking quartz. So we're looking forward to those results.
And is this the rock in between these veins? Is that just is it relatively unaltered country rock, or is it all sheared up and faulted up? I mean, is it like does it look like a big shear zone or something?
It's a combination. So when you're outside of it, you get pretty classic non-magnetic, non-mineralized, non-solidified magnetic diorite. And then when you get closer, vein systems don't interact with the wall rock significantly, so they don't have huge selvages, but you do see silicification, occasionally some sulfide development, and definitely demagnetization. And then there are some pre-mineral and post-mineral faults that crack shear zones through there as well. But broadly speaking, we've actually got excellent recoveries in Napoleon, whereas some of the other veins have post-mineral faults that destroy the veins, or they just turn them into rubble, basically.
And what do you know about the workings here? I know some of obviously one of them is sort of a couple of them are in intermittent production currently. So, I mean, presumably the vendors have something that passes for good underground maps. I know you've got a few older ones. Do you know much of anything about the workings that you've drilled under here?
No, at Napoleon we have next to no information. We do have, we're talking to a couple of the old timers that worked here, so they're likely flooded. They're blocked off at surface. So in other areas we've rehabilitated underground workings to collect samples, but here we just used it as a guide to prospectivity. I think it's a fair way of assessing it. Talking to the people who know a little bit about what did happen here, I think 20 odd years ago, we think it was a decline ramp to the north that came back underneath and effectively worked 2 levels of the vein down to approximately 50 metres, a bit shallower in the north, a bit steeper in the south.
Right.
We are looking around to see if there were any old survey files that are reliable. There's lots of historic data sets that may or may not have any credibility, but we didn't have anything to hand on heart say, this was good. We just talked and said, here's an indication of potential. And then when you step back up to figure 1, the plan map, we had that dilation that we talked about that's really clear in the inset, right, where the Napoleon vein, when it heads north-south, has a structural corridor of between sort of 2 and 5 metres. That's either a fault zone or vein. And then when it kicks across to that northwest angle, which is where we focus the drilling here, and there's a number of other repetitions along the vein, which will be quality drill targets for us, that corridor can step out to about 20 metres, 10 to 20 metres, and that's the structural corridor that's hosting all the veins in the cross sections. And
broadly speaking, property-wide, I know you've got, 10 geologists, 12 geologists or something going right now. I know they've been doing a lot of mapping, but broadly speaking, it's these flexures and changes in directions in the corridors. That's sort of what you're going to be focusing on and targeting, sort of camp-wide.
Yeah, we're actually up to 14 geologists now, given the break rosters. So we've added capacity with a view to potentially adding rigs.
Right.
That's a conversation to be had in the next week or so. There's two key structural intersections. A lot of it, we got a structural geologist by the name of Tony Starling. Luckily, we could move people he's a UK-based structural geologist who's had extensive experience in Mexico. And he identified a whole series of favourable structural regimes that could locate mineralisation. In fact, that was one of the challenges. We were hoping to rule out some orientations,
right,
but seems like a large number of structural settings are favourable for mineralisation in this district. But clearly,
which problems they have?
Yeah, exactly. It's the problem of a big district. From a scientific perspective, you want big districts because they can have big deposits, but it also means that the pressure temperature conditions were the same across a broad area. So things don't change rapidly to give you clear vectors. Everything can look the same. So it's probably a promotional thing to say, but, we're almost lost in a sea of silver on surface here.
Right.
And so we're trying to work out which of those areas within the vein district are the ones to focus. And pretty clearly, this is one of them. So dilations and vein intersections are a clear priority target for us along these corridors.
And the viewers can see on the inset here, and you mentioned in the news release, obviously, that you're up to hole 11 now on this. So are 9 and 10 those two holes that are sort of bracketing the section there, where it looks like you kind of went 30 meters north, 30 meters north?
That's correct. You might be able to hover over them with your mouse, but we spun the rig to the south and drilled the gap in between. Exactly. Yeah. The one to the south is hole 9, and that was to test between the 60-meter gap between hole 3 and hole 6.
Yeah.
So that hit the main vein, and that's being sampled. It's either that has been sent for analysis.
Right.
Then we spun the rig to the north, and we hit the main vein again, and that's been sent for analysis. And then yesterday we just finished hole 11, so we stepped down to the south. Right. And we're drilling a 25, it'll end up being, I think it's now 35 true meter step out from the discovery hole. And so we're just trying to get a sense of the size of the mineralization. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's easier to drill shallow holes. We get lots more holes quicker. So yeah, we're just stepping along strike a little more than we are at depth. Plus also from the pads, when you think about it, you can step down and you increase the angle to the vein, or you can step at an angle. But if you do both, it gets a little too oblique to the main vein. So we're sort of maximising the use of each pad and then moving on to the next area. So we'll drill this hole. The next hole will be another step out to the south of hole 11. And then as we get the results, we'll come back and test the depth potential of the system as well. But we've now got the main vein and subordinate veinlets with that. Over 150 metres of strike, open to the north and south.
Okay. It's hard to tell from the airport. I mean, you can see this pretty obvious road, and you can see the drill road by the look of it. But what's it like, kind of getting up and down strike on this thing in terms of accessing and getting pads in?
Yeah, it's not too bad. We're using a track-mounted rig, so right, we are using roads that intersect the vein. It's not so much that it's whether the road's in the right spot to get back and get underneath.
Right.
So the road's reasonably good. You can see there's another set of roads to the north at the next prospect to the north.
Right.
So we haven't struggled for pads, but we're just trying to make maximum use of the pads that we have to drill efficiently. Okay,
and assuming you guys are thinking, and I'm sure you are, in terms of adding rigs. I know there's still some COVID restrictions, and I know it gets tricky with things like drill logging shacks, for instance, when it comes to social distancing. What's the situation in terms of your ability to be, just from that perspective, from your ability to be able to add rigs? Or have you got a setup where it wouldn't be that difficult to throw on another rig or two and still kind of maintain the social distancing or whatever regulations you've got to deal with currently?
Yeah, we're fortunate in that we're based in a town called Concordia, about 15 minutes to the west of Napoleon. We'd hired a warehouse. We've just rented a second warehouse. So we have ample space to do our work and to keep up that distancing. We've got a pretty rigorous hygiene process and COVID analysis method, including the hemoglobin, the blood test, that are available in Mexico and don't seem to be available in Canada. So, we've got a rigid set of guidelines, and fingers crossed things remain safe to work for us in Mexico. That's clearly our priority. But assuming that it is safe to do so, I think we could comfortably handle a third and a fourth rig with the setup that we have at the moment.
Right.
And that's probably not a bad segue into what we touched on before. In our last resource, we do have a second rig drilling at Cordon de Loro.
Yeah.
It's another 5 kilometre long vein, excellent surface results that has never been drilled. It's got similar kind of workings to Napoleon. A couple of those we have been able to safely enter.
Right.
To show the scale, 50, 100 metre drives over 1 or 2 levels. So we're really looking forward to those results. Obviously Napoleon is the priority, but we still want to make sure that we test all of these potential ore shoot targets during this discovery drilling phase. and we're kind of fortunate. Maybe we can have our cake and eat it too at the moment. We've clearly got something that is likely to need resource drilling, and we can step out and test those other targets to really show the market the potential of the district.
And I think you touched on it last time, but I mean, can't assume viewers have seen or will see both of them. How many targets are you planning to hit during this 14,000 meter plus phase?
So when we kicked off, we had 20 targets. I think we lifted that to closer to 25. But probably that's how long is a piece of string answer now. As we learn more, we collect more samples. We've got more targets on Northern Cordon del Oro. We'll drill more holes into Napoleon. We tested Napoleon was, I think, the 5th or 6th of those targets. And so a combination of excellent outcropping mineralisation, vein intersections or textural interpretations that you're in favourable areas guided those. So we're going to try and balance between getting out there and showing what the full potential is, but also proving this up to show what the extent of this mineralisation can be.
Okay, and you recently did a financing, Mike, a bit over $4 million with a bunch of people who probably think their IQs went up in the last couple of weeks. What can you get done with that? That's enough to deal with all of this drill program. I assume you're not really in any hurry to do anything now.
That'll take us to the end of the year for drilling and possibly into the new year. So we're fully financed. We don't need to raise any more money. And I would add, there's countless other targets that we're looking at that we may have the ability to test with that treasury. So right now it's not imperative that we raise money.
Okay. I know that you obviously have ongoing communications with the vendors, I'm sure. Have you looked into the idea of getting a and I'm not expecting anything massive, but a slightly better deal if you were to pull the trigger a little bit earlier? I mean, I think it's worth pointing out to viewers, and this is something I talked to subscribers about earlier today in an alert. This type of situation is one where, as the company is successful and the share price and the market cap goes up, the implied dilution for completing this option agreement keeps dropping. And in point of fact, in this kind of market, it becomes easier to finance. I'm not suggesting you do it tomorrow, but I don't think you'd have any trouble finding $20 million. I'm sure you're beating people off with a stick at the moment. Is there any conversations that you've had with the vendors where they said, look, if you can do it year one, Mike, we cut you a bit of a break on the price, or is it pretty set?
What I would say to that, of course, is that we do have a good relationship with the vendors. Of course, it's evidenced by that extension that we announced a month or two ago.
Yeah.
We're always actively exploring ideas. I can't give any details to anything right now, but we're all shareholders here. The management, the board, we want to see less dilution. We want to see us execute on our strategy with less shares out. And so that's a meaningful thing for us. And so, without giving any details, what I'd say is that we're always trying to find ways to get our goal and our strategy accomplished with limited shares out.
And you've got about, what, 6 million, give or take, right now?
I'll call it 5.5 right now.
Okay. Yeah. And that's enough. That's enough to get you in the next year.
Yeah.
And so, what's your sense of timelines here as far as more news in 3 or 4 weeks, Charles, give or take? Is that about right?
Yeah, it seems like the labs are getting a little more volume now. Other people have started up post the coronavirus quarantines around the world. But yeah, I think we're going to have very consistent news flow every 2 to 3 weeks while we're drilling the shallow holes, and then as you go deeper, it'll slow down a touch. But yeah, I think we'll keep trying to sort of batch results like this so that they explain meaningfully what the potential of the mineralization could be. Oreshoot's a bit forward looking from the exchange's perspective.
And is there anything that we need to know, or anything that you're looking into in terms of the composition of this stuff? It's not. You probably don't know for sure. You're drilling core, but I assume this is all sulfides that you're drilling, not oxides. And this, the camp historically, I mean, I believe there's 2 mills on the camp. The camp itself has always displayed very good characteristics when it comes to things like metallurgy, recoveries, and stuff like that have always been good, I think.
Yeah, that's a next step for us is to confirm that metallurgy. We know from historical work that it's the silver's in argentite, acanthite, silver sulfides, and also in electrum with gold. We wouldn't be surprised to find some silver sulfur salts as well. But yes, all sulfide. There's next to no oxide. And as you said, the local miners from the very small scale miners to the toll mill to the mill that we have the option on have recovered excellent recoveries from the district. But that's one of the next steps as we start thinking more in the resource space to confirm.
Okay. I mean, I think we've covered everything. We can save anything else for the next Zoom call. And next time you put out 10 kilos plus there, Charles. No pressure.
I hope we're talking to you soon.
We're all setting our watch.
They're amazing results. They're not everyday results.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, we'll have more news in the next 2 to 3 week range, and happy to talk, understand them ourselves and then discuss them with you and your subscribers.
Okay. Thanks for coming on again today, guys. Great story, great results, obviously, and an equally, if not more impressive looking stock chart that seems to look better every minute. That's Vizsla Resources, VZLA on the venture, and VIZSF, I believe, on the, was it QB, I think?
That's the QB, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Great stock, great management team. These guys are delivering. It's a bull market, folks. You want to be paying attention to this one. Vizsla Resources. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, everybody.